Okay, so I think we can start with a little bit of chit chat because I heard it doesn't like start the microphone at the same time for everyone, and then people like come in the middle. So, how are you guys doing?
Good.
Always a good day. I'm excited to be here, hang out with you guys for an hour. That'll be fun.
Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. So, have you guys sold all your Rocket Lab and gone all in on Firefly this week when they IPO'd?
It was a fun week this week. There was so much going on every day. People who follow me might know that I did short Voyager when they went public.
Yeah, you're Mr. Bear now.
No, and you know what? It's funny. Like, how often do you have to see the exact same thing happen over and over and over again with every space company that goes public before you're like, well, I might as well make a few bucks off this pattern? And it's not even like saying anything negative about the company. It's just like, this is clearly what's going to happen. It's going to go way up and then it's going to drop. And it did with Voyager. I did the same thing with Firefly. I shorted just 100 shares, which is a pretty small amount. But I was up $1,000 after one day. Like, and to me, this pattern is just so obvious. It's like, am I missing something here? But no, I don't know. It just works. So,
Yeah.
But here's the weird thing: the people who are buying it, like, they see the same thing you see. Like, I don't understand who's buying it. Like, you know that you go IPO because it's super good for your, like, the market is very high up, and then you overprice it, and then it gets overpriced one level more. And who's buying?
it makes you wonder because the pattern is just there, but I guess people just get so excited for, a new company hitting the market, especially when it comes to space and stuff. But I don't understand. Maybe I'll tell you guys though. I guess I do have a bit of news. Well, I guess it's kind of the unspoken rule of Rocket Lab Weekly. One of us always has expecting a kid. So yeah, I'm now expecting my first kid. So very excited about that.
There you go.
That's
Congrats,
super good, man.
Soon as Scott has his baby arrive, I'm like, yeah, I'm next one up.
There you go. There you go. Congratulations. That's awesome.
So you guys also know what that means? We already know who's the next guy up.
I think after me comes Vince number 5.
I think so. I think so. I don't have anybody in the pipeline, so it'd be a surprise if I had a kid.
That's typical. Yeah. Which week are you guys in?
What week? Well, we're about like 2021. So
really 20 weeks in.
Yeah, we're like halfway through now.
Oh wow. Then you've been really good on keeping this a secret.
Yeah, I've held that in for a little while. I don't know. It's just I don't know. My wife wanted to tell a bunch of people in person and to see their reactions and stuff like that. And that took a lot of time because we don't see all the family all that much. And then it just felt weird to like tell random internet people when like, there's aunts that don't know yet and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, if she had been open to just texting people about it, then I would have like told everyone sooner. But that's fine,
And has the baby decided its gender yet?
Yes, the gender is decided. I don't know if I should tell you guys that one yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think there might be some people that still don't know. So
very good.
But, I found out the gender like last week, and thank you very much to Fool's Gold. Hope you're still enjoying your travels.
Yeah.
Okay, that is awesome. So on this good news, I want to welcome everyone to episode 97 of Rocket Lab Weekly. Just as a fun point, it looks like episode 100 is going to be the same day as the LC3 opening. So it feels like it was almost meant to be. It was a very good time to start Rocket Lab Weekly. I knew this when I did it 100 weeks ago, that this is when the LC3 would open, and that's why I timed it like that.
Perfect timing.
Yeah, so Rocket Lab Weekly 100 is going to be fire. And but until then, we have to make this one also fire. And we have just had Rocket Lab earnings, which I think was fantastic earnings. And we had a new week pass. So we need to go through everything Rocket Lab this week. So welcome everyone. And thank you guys for the donations for Dave's baby. That's pretty nice to see.
There you go. That's
Put it
almost enough
into
for a
Rocket
crib.
Lab shares in her. In their RESP.
Her there, yeah.
Just don't tell anyone. It's a secret between us, few thousand people.
Yeah, he here there. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I call women sir all the time too, so it could easily be.
It could still be either way. Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah.
No problem. Cool. So we take the first news, and that is, came out at the same time as earnings. That, and I think this has been out already before, but Rocket Lab has cleared the spacecraft integration milestone for Victus Haze, and this is only 15 months after the contract to completion, which is super fast. And so if they have completed the integration, that means that this Victus Haze is sitting on a rocket, right? Ready to be launched. Or am I misunderstanding this?
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't actually read the integration part before, but I think that's what it means. The second stage is integrated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm pretty sure that the reason why they're harping on this so much is because they are after very big government contracts, and then they need to, keep PRing themselves how good they are with timelines and budgets, which they are. And I think it's a very valid point to push. What do you guys think about this piece of news?
I think it's good. There's other companies also kind of in the wings that are kind of in competition. Firefly being one of them, I believe, that are in competition for this. And I think I'm not sure who else is kind of in competition for these sorts of missions to do a 24-hour turnaround. I mean, they're not all going to be called Victus Haze, right? But it's a comparable sort of mission for each of these companies. And so I need to do some deep diving as to figure out who else is kind of in the wings for this, no pun intended, and trying to understand, who else, because what could end up very well happening is there potentially could be a larger contract at the end of this, depending on who gets to the next step, So curious to see as this goes forward. But I know Sir Peter Beck in the past, he seemed very excited about this particular mission. So I think it could open up a huge opportunity for the national defense side going forward.
Yeah, there's a few really cool things about this mission. So first of all, it's like responsive launch. So U.S. military is obviously very big on that, being able to launch it, very short notice. And that's kind of Firefly's big thing. They're also on this mission demonstrating the capability of kind of intercepting or meeting up with another spacecraft, which is also going to be launched, not by Rocket Lab. That one, I believe, I'd have to double check who it is. It might be Firefly, but they're going to perform proximity operations and prove that they can. So it's responsive. It's going to meet up with another spacecraft in low Earth orbit and in close proximity and just prove out a couple new capabilities there. I mean, they've gone close proximity for one of the Japanese missions, but this one's really cool. And they're doing it all, in-house. So
was this the mission where they like the government ordered a service, like this is what we need, and Rocket Lab was also like it was a complete end-to-end mission, or was it another Victus
No, I think it is this one. And Peter kind of talks about that a lot and points it out.
Yeah. So definitely exciting for this one. Okay, the next one is that we have gotten a full duration hot fire. I'm kind of Q&Ing. I want to see with the audience. But by the way, I just really want to thank Fool's Gold, Brett Thomas, James D, Francisco Ramirez, and Call Me Curtis. Most of it is to the new baby. Thank you guys for all the super chats. So would you guys want to listen to the full duration, or we have done this before and we don't need to? I just, rocketry is like a very visceral, emotional thing for a lot of people, and I see like a lot of people can't stop watching this. So what do you guys think? Should we listen to it together?
Listen to a portion at least.
Okay. So now for sure my sound is not going to work. Let's see if it does.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, we got a 30-second preview of the hot fire test, and a lot of people on Twitter were pointing out how they have refined the pipes, and it's looking really good. And the fact that we are posting a full duration hot fire test. Okay, I'm not a rocket engineer, but I would think that if they're doing full duration tests now, that they have tested, like it should be really towards the end of the qualification campaign, because you have to test all the small things before and all the different weird scenarios, how you stop the rocket. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the long duration hot fire test is the easiest thing to do, because Sir Peter Beck said that it's the starting up the rocket engine that is very complicated, and shutting it down and restarting it. And maybe they're just like, we have to do something for Q2 earnings too. Yeah, let's just run the rocket for a minute more. We have already run it for 1.5 minutes before. So
yeah, I mean, I think it's great news. I don't know whether I'm sure they still do more testing on various scenarios, like starting it up under certain conditions for heat and stuff like that for re-entry. And they've probably done a lot of that. I know he's talked about it before, but yeah, those diamonds look great. Flames, from what I understand, they're looking more blue as opposed to green that we kind of saw on the original test fires. So looks a lot more clean, and we're not getting like the engine rich exhaust. In the original Archimedes, there's kind of there. I don't think there was these little bands around the nozzle of the engine. So I think that's some new cooling in play, perhaps. But yeah, nice to see they're making good progress on it.
There's a lot to test, right? And this is something that I think I don't know if it was Sir Peter Beck or Elon or Jeff. So my memory is kind of flighting me at the moment, but there's not only the initial test here that they're kind of talking about from the pad, where you have the kind of liquid cooled fuels that are, pretty much cryogenically cooled down and very cool temperatures. But then also you're going to have the re-entry burn, right? As you kind of come back down, the stage 1 Archimedes is going to have to reignite and hopefully, sustain and then eventually arrest the decline for the entire stage 1 vessel and into air to be able to land it, right? So that's going to be a completely different dynamic environment, and so that has to also be tested. So there's like you stated, Dave, lots of different environments and lots of different testing that needs to be done, not just hey, let's rip it open. You could see that obviously that you have a lot of the frost that's kind of coming off of the engine there. That's obviously a very cold test. So this looks like it's associated with the initial burn, right? Which is the 150 odd second burn that is associated with getting into orbit. But I'm curious to see what the testing looks like for re-entry, and if that also has the frost associated with it. Probably not, because at that point it's likely that things have been heated up a little bit. But I don't know. It's an interesting thought process.
Do you think there's like some scientific reason that they have this blue light there, or is it just because it looks really cool?
Oh, good question. Yeah, I don't know.
I thought about that myself. Maybe they need to see something, like they have all these different sensors and cameras in case something goes wrong, and then maybe I don't think they would just do it for us. Like,
no, yeah, maybe not. I had one other question about this from the earnings call. Vince might have cut out for a second. So when he was talking a little bit about the engines and the testing and the different like regimes or whatever, and he was saying how it's a lot more difficult to test engines that are for a reusable rocket because you have to test. And then he listed out the different scenarios, but one of the ones he said was a re-entry burn. So he said boost back burn, re-entry burn, landing burn. And we've all heard previously that Neutron is not planned to do a entry burn. It'll just handle the heat with its, wider base and stuff like that. Do you think that's changed, or was that just kind of like a general statement about all reusable rockets?
I don't know. I have no, because I mean, it could be that they based on the calculations, it's like just, like on the border that they think they don't need it, but in case like the speed is too much, then they want to be able to do it, like just to get the rocket under control. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
It was just the way he phrased it was so ambiguous, whether it was talking about reusable rockets in general or Neutron specifically.
The way I know Sir Peter Beck, I think he would be speaking about Neutron.
Yeah, maybe.
Because he's such a precise engineer, and then he would, yeah. I don't know. Maybe if we have an interview with him, we can ask him about this.
Yeah, good question.
Could be a good question.
Yeah. All right. By the way, now that we're talking about this ambiguous statement, so we didn't have you on the earnings call. What did you think about the statements about the Neutron schedule? Because I felt like that we were psychologically being prepped that it would go into early 2026. Like the way they were, saying that this is like a very green light schedule and risks are not handled, and it's like everything has to go right for this to still happen in 2025. Yeah.
Possible. He's definitely used the words green light schedule before. So that wasn't new, but he did kind of further explain green light schedule, meaning if everything goes properly and there's no, like, there's a bunch of things that could cause a delay. If there's like, one component that has an issue that could cause a delay. So yeah, I do think we're certainly not looking at like an October launch or a November launch. I don't think.
Yeah. I think, he's stated this in the past. What I do see is, I think it's nice to see there's a lot of things being worked in parallel. I think there's a lot of things that are probably closer to being done than that graphic demonstrates. So I think the engine qualification is probably closer to completion than people think, but that still could be months of work. So I think a lot of people are potentially thinking that it's based off what it looks like, a lot of work to be done. Then there's another group of people that think it's super close to being done. So I think it's somewhere in between. And I think what Peter is trying to demonstrate is it's really dependent upon if everything goes to kind of like without a hitch, right? And there's always, with any of these engineering solutions, there's always going to be something that approaches and impacts. But to me, if you think about it, in the grand scheme of things, they announced this in March 2021. And I said this on the earnings call when we were talking. They announced this in March 2021. What's the difference between December 2024 and February 2026? When you're talking about a rocket program that will last potentially 15 to 20 years, if not potentially longer. So in my opinion, I think everyone's being super, what's the word I'm looking for? Scrutinizing to the highest level and highest degree, when in reality, I think that you need to take a longer wavelength. Everyone needs to take a longer wavelength from the company and recognize that it doesn't matter if it launches in the third quarter like we are now. It doesn't matter if it launches in the fourth quarter like we are now. It doesn't matter if it launches in the first quarter of 2026. What it would matter is if it launches in like 2028 or 2029, right, as an inaugural launch. That's different. But to me, the difference between these 3 quarters, it doesn't matter in the long term. What matters is that eventually it's done, and it's done well and to the best extent that they can, and it goes off without a hitch. And so I think people that are trying to like force things out of nothing, they've obviously never worked on a big project like this before and recognize the difficulty of coordinating thousands of people. Drag me through the coals if you want to, that's fine. But at the end of the day, I personally am here for what the stock will be in 2035, not what it'll be at the end of the year or the first quarter of 2026.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, I mostly agree. I think the only potential argument you could make against that is they've kind of said spend will be elevated while Neutron's under development. So longer development means, more spending. But at the end of the day, they're still doing this so much more cheaply than what we've seen from Relativity, Vulcan, basically anyone except maybe Stoke. I'm not too sure about Stoke's budget, but yeah.
Yeah, and even also keep in mind that even if it's Q1 2026, it's still like basically record-breaking rocket development that and is super fast in terms of this size rocket. I believe I have to look at the table again, but I believe that Q1 2026 would be around the same time as SpaceX did with the Falcon 9. But yeah, maybe I'm off on that. And they were the fastest on that class of rocket.
But they didn't have reusability day one. So
That's true.
yes and no, right? And so Falcon 9 was retrofitted for reusability. And so I don't know what kind of time that would add. So that's an interesting piece of it. And you have to think stage one has the hippo fairings. That obviously adds months of potential additional qualification that needs to happen. You have the planning of the reentry burn and many of those things that will easily take a month, if not years, of additional. So it is comparable, but at the same time, not 100% comparable.
You got to think as well, given that, Neutron's reusable from day one, it should, you would think, be able to ramp like quite a bit faster in terms of cadence than Falcon 9 did, given how long that took.
As somebody said, they'd have no experience. They had the Falcon 1. It was very comparable to what the Electron was.
I have another kind of question for you guys, if you don't mind me being a little more chatty today.
Absolutely.
Or just like a hypothetical here. Because a lot of companies like SpaceX with the Falcon 1 decide to cancel their small rocket and go after the large after like the first launch or two. And do you think there has been an opportunity cost to continuing to operate Electron? And if they hadn't done that and it got Neutron to the pad, a year or two sooner, would that have been worth it given Neutron's, 6 launches of Neutron brings in the same revenue as 30 for Electron? Just curious.
I mean, my thought on this is no, absolutely not, because how do you call it? SpaceX quit the small launch because at that time there was no market for it yet, and then Rocket Lab kind of the market for it came in with Rocket Lab, and all the others are quitting the small launch because I don't think you can really compete with Rocket Lab's price and reliability. That's number one. And then number two is the more successful launches Rocket Lab does, the more rapport and PR value it has, like how reliable they are. And I think that it has opened a lot of doors for them. And then number three is you can see that the demand is increasing for the Electron. Like last year, I don't know if you guys remember, a year ago we had an earnings call where Adam Spice was like, yeah, like we would be growing a lot more, but the market is just not there. And then they had 16 launches. And then since then, it's like, they're selling like 10 packet of launches. We can easily, based on Scotto's calculation, if everybody's done like launch 25 or 26 times this year, I don't think everybody's going to be ready, of course, but it seems like they have really created a market.
I'm not trying to say they should have canceled Electron. I just thought it was an interesting discussion, given pretty much every other company's gone the other way, where they stop operating.
Yeah.
They're making different calculus, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're potentially looking at Stoke, right? And how they went and they launched the first time and they only launched it once, right? And they immediately went to their second medium launch vehicle, right?
Relativity.
Relativity.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for the correction. So in that respect, I could see it going 50-50. I think haste, we haven't yet to see the potential of that. And I don't know. So I think there's two things. There's the piece where the Black Skies of the world, I don't think would have been able to afford a $50 million launch initially. And same thing with maybe the Planet Labs, and maybe some of these other smaller companies like Synspective. And maybe I'm wrong. I haven't done the research to see if they are also launching on, say, the Falcon 9 at $70 million a pop or not. So in that respect, there could be an opportunity where some of these companies have only could have afforded, say, an $8 to $10 million launch, and it was their only way to get to space, and therefore Rocket Lab was the only way. And now they've demonstrated their capability and have been able to go and get additional funding to be able to get more and more, and allow them to kind of kickstart their space careers themselves and space companies, whereas before, they might not have been able to at 50 million or $70 million. I don't know the answer to that, but I don't think we've truly seen the potential of Haste and the ability for that to go. But I think it's an interesting conversation. I think that these other companies may be in a different situation where, for example, like if you look at SpaceX, they had the backing from Elon, which is billions of dollars. And then they also had the backing of, say, Google and several other companies to be able to potentially go right directly into something like the Falcon 9. And they were an early mover as well. So there's that piece. And then same thing with Blue Origin. They didn't necessarily have to go and focus too much on New Shepard and make that kind of a vehicle for orbital or delivery, because they were looking at New Glenn, and New Glenn, you had the opportunity to spend billions of dollars. What was it, $2 billion a year or something like that, that Jeff has been pouring into to Blue Origin for quite some time. So I think I see where you're going. I would say it's 50-50. I'd say that potentially the company might not have made it without the revenue and the ability. But I think the potential is that they were able to slow down and demonstrate their capability comparatively to others and pick up great things. Like, would they have been able to pick up the Virgin Orbit stuff for pennies on the dollar, like $100 million worth of stuff for $16 million, had they not necessarily? I don't know. It's a good question. It's a really interesting question. Maybe you can ask that one to Adam and Peter.
I mean, it's clearly a good business to have. I was just curious, how big the opportunity cost was. We should probably dive into earnings, I'd imagine.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So, as Dave suggested, earnings. Sorry, we need to look from the beginning. By the way,
to finish that while you're scrolling up, I mean, they have talked about how that underlying business is profitable. Right. So at this point, it's helping offset some of the costs associated with Neutron at the moment. Right. So I don't know how profitable, because they don't break it out to the extent that I would like. But maybe it's been able to help fund, $100 million or, I don't know, $75 million worth of Neutron. Otherwise, they might have had to raise for that and dilute shareholders more.
So guys, I have a question. I noticed this after many times going through this, that on the GEOs, it says new business unit optical systems established to quickly scale electro, optical, and infrared sensors for missile warning tracking and space domain awareness. So do you think that this is like a small unit, or like what they mean is like it's going to be like launches, space systems, optical systems, and then space infrastructure in the future reports?
I mean, it sounds like it's not just going to be Geost, right? So I'm curious whether Mynaric would fall under that or not. It's kind of optical communications, but this seems to be specifically saying, sensors for missile warning tracking and space domain awareness, whereas Mynaric's is more for communications. So I don't know if that would fall under that or not, but it could be a hint that there's potentially more to come on the sensor and tracking side of things.
Yeah.
Sorry, I missed the question. I got an Airbnb message.
No problem. So do you think that, like, when they write here, new business unit optical systems is established, like that is it going to be that we have, launch systems, space systems, like on the quarterly report, and optical systems, and then maybe space infrastructure reported with earnings, or it's just like a small unit inside the company?
Based off a conversation, I've asked this specifically to Adam in a previous interview. So unless he's changed his mind, I don't think that we'll split this out. Granted, this was prior to the acquisition, right? So, I mean, I asked him specifically, I was like, hey, is there ever going to be an instance where we have 3 different launch vehicles? So you're going to, split out the profit and loss associated with Haze? Or you're going to split out the profit and loss associated with Electron, Neutron? Because I'm curious, each of those businesses are kind of standalone at that point. Are they making profit on their own? Are they dragging or helping offset the profitability of a different one? I want to know that, right? Like Neutron, for example, currently has to be fed through other pieces of the business, or is dragging on through capital raises, right? So I kind of want to know that, right? What it would be nice to see how much Electron, they say that it's profitable, but how profitable is it? Is it actually offsetting some of the cost of Neutron, or is it just break even, or what have you, right? So I've asked that. I don't think we'll get to that. So I think it's a new business unit, I think, underneath Space Components, but I don't think they'll break out it under Space Components.
That's probably fair. Okay, cool. So on earnings, I think, Dave, we could go to you because we didn't have you on the earnings call. Like, what was your general takeaway? What did you like? What didn't you like? Yeah.
In general, I was pretty happy. I know some people were disappointed by the earnings per share being a bit lower than was, the analysts were expecting. For me, that's like whatever, because the Neutron spend is not unexpected or even representative of what the business is going to look like going forward. This is like R&D work right now, and I'm happy for them to spend on future revenue growth. But the top line, 144.5, was a beat. Before the call, I was saying I was thinking maybe 139.5, which was on the high end of the range, but they beat that. Launch margins were quite high. Launch ASP was quite high, so I thought that was very impressive as well. And what really stood out to me, and it may not sound exciting or sexy, but gross margins going up to like 31, and then the forecast for Q3 gross margins, we're talking like 35 to 37. I mean, we were in the 20s not very long ago, and this trend is up and to the right, very, very steady. And that jump from 31 to say 36 next quarter, I think is amazing and a very good sign for the business. So not always exciting to talk about margins, but yeah.
No, it's even when I have my Palantir calls, it's something I focus on, because it's one of the things that when you think about it, where's the revenue eventually going to get to with these companies? And then you use that margin from a gross perspective to understand, okay, you have your gross margin, then you subtract out your SG&A costs. What is this bottom line actually going to look like? And so to me, like you stated, I mean, I was expecting low 30s to mid 30s as kind of like a terminal point, right? That's where we'd get to in the long run. And the fact that we're there right now, prior to Neutron, and Neutron's reusability, which only complement that to be higher, I believe, because I think they're aiming for closer to 50%, maybe even higher gross margins on Neutron. It makes me think maybe I should be looking at closer to 40% gross margins in the long term. And so that, that ends up being, if you think about it, it might not seem like a lot, but if you go from 35 to 40%, I mean, that's a large uplift. That's a 15% increase in net income at the end of the day, if you think about it, because you think about it, it's like 5% of 35, it's 1/7, it's a pretty big jump at that point. So I don't think people recognize, the gross margins can play a huge factor into the underlying future potential of the organization. So yeah, I was the fact that I saw that and this early on is very promising, and I'm curious to see, as they continue to develop, as they get the manufacturing, as Frank Klein continues to work on the manufacturing base, what ends up happening, and if they cross over the 40%, I mean, holy crap! I was very surprised as well.
Yeah.
Did I hear right? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Vince.
No, you go ahead. You go ahead.
I didn't go back through everything after taking all my notes and listening live. So did I hear right that they used their shelf offering for raised like 300 million or something like that?
I don't know if they said it, but the numbers were. I also saw it in the chat. It's funny when you're doing it live, like you're not able to always like take in all the data.
Yeah.
But I also saw it on the chat, and I think it was more the cash level basically implied that they did it.
Thought he said something about that in either the financial section or their Q&A, but I have to double check and go back over the numbers.
Yeah. Also, Curtis is saying the numbers indicated. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it was like 754 million cash and cash equivalents from what I.
Yeah. So regarding the gross margin, I was also harping on this a lot on the earnings call, and like we don't have earnings yet, or positive earnings. We don't have a PE ratio, and it basically throws a curveball into like how you value the company, right? And then I looked at, for example, Tesla back in 2019. And I was like, what did you see on the company, like as an investor, that could have indicated this huge jump in the share price that happened in 2019? And I came to that, if you analyze the stock, like the only thing that was like weird and out of the ordinary and that showed that Tesla was not just another car company was that their gross margins were like the highest in the industry, and like way higher than like a normal car company. And obviously, when you're in the ramp up phase, like you have to spend more than, like it's very usual that you're negative, but like earnings wise, but the gross margin, it still shows that you have a very high profit potential. And the fact that I was like looking at my Rocket Lab model, and I saw this number, and I saw that they're going to 40%, and I'm like, I'm freaking wrong on my Rocket Lab model, because like I was thinking that they would only reach 30% gross margin, and they're already at coming close to 40%. And then Neutron is not reusable yet. We like that is going to massively increase the gross margin. And we're going to have space infrastructure in the company, which is going to even massively increase the gross margin from that. So I think I was very pessimistic on Rocket Lab earnings based on this, and it's a very, very exciting numbers, but I don't know yet how it should be modeled correctly. So I'm just curious, like, what do you guys think the gross margins will go into, and what do you think the gap is like? Because it's gross margins, and then you have, let's say 25, like, okay, it's 32% gap gross margin. And do you think that the other costs are going to be like 15%? So there is like 16% gap profit left once we are scaled? Or do you think the other costs are 25%? So there is a 6% profit left?
Yeah, I mean, it should improve with scale. Like, your SG&A is not like a percentage of your revenue or whatever. But yeah, I think I do need to go back over my numbers, because they're definitely, the margins are improving a little faster than I expected, for sure. So like you said, like I'm probably wrong on my model too, in terms of what I had their margin numbers as. So.
Yeah, and in terms of the sale, so as you guys stated, they had an ATM offering of up to $500 million worth, and as of the second quarter, June 30th, 2025, they had sold 15 million shares, generating $396 million in gross proceeds.
396.
So that's where, like, I was expecting like 500 maybe million or 400 million of dollars in the cash balance, and they showed up with over 700 million, and that kind of took me by surprise, because I was, you're acquiring two companies. I recognize those haven't closed, right? So right now you have $700 million. So that over the next coming quarter should probably drop into the 400s because of just burn rate coupled with the acquisition costs. But the fact that it jumped up to the 700s was kind of quite surprising. So about 400 million out of that 500 million seems to be I've already kind of done, and actually at a pretty good price. Only 9 million, almost 10 million of that was underwriting costs. So 400 million. So it's like 2.5% is going to underwriting costs. That's pretty good. Worth it, I guess.
I think great prices to raise capital at. I don't have a problem with it.
Let me check. I'll do the calculation for what what price it was at.
And isn't it exactly at like the money that they raised? Isn't it exactly the cost of Geost and this company? So it's what I'm trying to say by that is when Adam Spice is saying like we have money to scale and we don't need money, and the only reason why we did this was the acquisitions. It's being kind of shown in the numbers to be correct.
Mm-hmm. It was at an average price of $26.
What are you guys doing wasting our precious equity? No, I'm kidding.
But that might be spread across. I'm not sure how much it was spent. I'd have to do an average sales of what it was in the first quarter, because there was some in the first quarter as well.
Okay, cool. Anything else in the earnings? We did cover the Neutron delay. We did cover the gross margin. How do you guys feel about because I guess like there was no red flags, but I would say a yellow flag is the backlog not growing.
Yeah, and I was about to mention that.
Yeah, and if you, I didn't see, I saw it in the comments. If you
Shrinking.
look at the, I mean, if you look at the 10Q, it was actually like 900 something, like 89 million. It was below 1 billion, and then their wording was like the backlog is approximately 1 billion. Like, so.
Yeah, I guess they did. They wanted to put some positive spin on that and highlight, not make it obvious, I guess, that it dropped slightly quarter over quarter. But I mean, everything I hear more and more just leads me to believe we're waiting for SDA Tranche 3 tracking layer to come in and add like 800 million to the backlog. They seem very confident in that. So, and they even said one time kind of casually, like, it's going to swing back more towards space systems versus launch, whereas right now launch has been adding more. So yeah, I mean, I'm feeling confident about that one.
And when is that one due?
Well, it says in the RFP or whatever, the release, the solicitation, like October. I think it's sometime in October for sure. But then the rebid for this other one was supposed to happen like July 15th, and that still hasn't been announced yet. So I guess you don't know, it could get delayed. But yeah.
And that's a big one, right? I mean, the multiple companies, I think. I'm trying to remember how the size of it, right? It's multiple companies, or is it going to be one?
No, it should be a few.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they'll each get like 18 out of the.
That's right. Yeah. So that's good. I like hearing that sort of thing where it's like, it's just not just one company, like the Golden Dome. Like everyone's just like, oh, like, do you think we're in? It's like, there's no way Rocket Lab is going to be the sole like contractor for Golden Dome, right? Like, there's just there's no way that they can handle that much volume in that short amount of time. It's likely to be the Golden Dome is spread out into so many different companies because there's just so much work to be done over the course of the next 3 to 4 years associated with it. So to me, it's more like it's a benefit for the entirety of the sector versus specifically one company or another. Now it's going to suck because some companies aren't going to get anything, but overall, yeah, the Rocket Lab will likely get some huge piece of that.
I don't understand how they couldn't, after the acquisitions they've made with Geost and Mynaric, and it says in the document that, part of the things that they're judged on is, the company performing on previous contracts for the government, and it sounds like their Tranche 2 is going very well. So
yeah.
Maybe if before we move on from earnings, I guess just a couple other comments. Adam did say that realistically, free cash flow positive is probably more like 27, not 26. So that was interesting bit of information. Yeah,
were you expecting free cash flow positive in 26?
No, my model was 27, but I just thought it was a good data point to make a note of.
Okay. I thought that took you by surprise, and I was like, wow, okay, that didn't realize you were so bullish for next year. Okay. Good to know.
But a question, because the way Adam Spice said it is that the adjusted earnings is going to be positive. But was that in 28? And he said, but the cash flow will already be positive the year before, or the PN? No, yeah, he said that the PNL is going to turn before the cash flow turns.
That's how it works. Yeah.
But was it that the PNL will be positive in 2027, and then the cash flow turns in 2028? I don't remember now. On the
you see first profitability in 26, and then cash flow positive, like
exactly
said in 27. Yeah.
Because what is more important for you guys? Is it the GAAP profitability, or any type of profitability, or the cash flow positivity? Because it's so interesting in most companies that we follow, like Palantir and Tesla, and like the cash flow positivity, it came before the P&L profitability, and in Rocket Lab, because they are going to be building the rockets, which they have to order and put out, the cash flow, but it doesn't count as cost, because the cost will be counted when the launch happens, and they can count the income in the bookkeeping. This is like very nerdy bookkeeping rules. So this is why here you will have the opposite. Like, you will have a P&L that will show positive, and the cash flow will still be negative.
Yeah. Honestly, like, I'm happy for them to spend as much as possible on future growth, because I think it will be spent well. Obviously you want to see the underlying business performing well, but that doesn't bother me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what I need to look at is what I need to look at is really what the underlying SG&A costs are, because what I've been looking at and what we've really been seeing is the elevated losses associated with Neutron and the capex associated with that. And so to me, I'm kind of, it doesn't really give me a good idea as to what the true underlying overhead costs are for the company. And so, anyway, needless to say, for me, for long term, I would love to see cash flow positivity, because that means we are able to not have to go to the market, sell shares or anything like that, right? We'll actually be able to use our own cash flow to be able to generate, different capital expenditures or what have you, and focus on that over time. So I think that's going to be a key piece, but I think what's going to get a bigger bump in terms of share price and everything is probably going to be profitability. So I think people are probably just eyeing for that first. And I think after you get to that, I think people are going to know that the cash flow break even is likely not too far down the corner in terms of that, because I don't think there's going to be a lot of capital expenditure after Neutron. I think a lot of the capital expenditure the company is going through at the moment is truly what's experienced right now. And so unless there's a different project that comes up, a new rocket model or something like that, I don't truly foresee there be an extensive amount of capital expenditure. So I'm not surprised that it's only a year after. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if the free cash flow actually sneaks into the last quarter of 2026 either, because, and I guess it really just depends on, how many rockets of Neutron they're able to kind of get. But I wouldn't be surprised just based off of timing. Hey, we already made the second and third Neutrons already. And once they go into 2026, they're not spending any more capital. Maybe the only capital they're spending on is just launching them. And at that point, it's probably the least amount of costs associated with the Neutron program is launch rather than actually building and transport. So I don't know. But yeah, it's not surprising that very quickly after profitability you get to cash flow. But I wouldn't see cash flow, because then at the end of the day, you can get rid of all the debt. You can basically be on your own, and it's okay for a company to hold debt. By the way, I'm not against debt. And the thing I want to see most at the end of the day is really the return on equity that the company can produce. And I think that based off the gross margins that we're seeing, the return on equity for this the company should be pretty strong at the end of the day, which I think will be different than what I believe most people are believing. I think people are probably thinking single digit, maybe teens return on equity, and it could be something north of 20, maybe even 25%. And that'll actually be something that's pretty phenomenal. because then you're able to borrow money at, say, anywhere between 5 to 10% and generate, a 10 to 15% increment on top of that, right? And makes getting debt very reasonable at that respect.
Sorry to hop in here, guys. So I only have about 5 minutes left. I got plans, but if there's any last topics you want to cover before I have to hop off, just figured I'd mention it.
So I quickly, there's one thing I'm curious to get your opinion on. So again, the Rocket Lab model probably being wrong on the gross margin, and probably I'm also wrong on the revenue increase, because if we are going to get in Golden Dome contracts for billions that have to be executed by 4 short years, how do you think with that? How should we model?
I don't know how we can model Golden Dome. I don't think we know what it is enough.
Yeah.
We can just kind of keep it in the back of our mind. There should be more demand coming, but in terms of that, I don't think I know how to model it. I think in terms of my spreadsheets, I'll have to increase gross margins a bit more aggressively, because I think I probably had them only getting to 37 a year later or something like that. So that's great news. And yeah, but what do you guys have an idea of how you're gonna put Golden Dome into your spreadsheets?
I'm meditating on how it should be done, because if you look at my old model, Rocket Lab is really, really overvalued, but and also if you look at metrics like price to sales, it's very overvalued. But then if you add in okay, but if we're suddenly getting a $3 billion a year contract on Golden Dome, it kind of resets everything to very reasonable levels, and then it's a screaming buy at this level, and then I'm okay, which one? But it's yeah, not easy.
What if Golden Dome is just they rename the SDA constellation Golden Dome, and they add in some space-based interceptors, which I don't think Rocket Lab would build those because they're weapons, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. But I think the thing that I have yet to really try to do is understand how much revenue will be coming from the Flatellite piece of business, and the gross margins of that will be massive. And so I don't necessarily understand how that will eventually feed into what the profitability of the company will be. And I think that that's really where the long-term value will show up for the business. It isn't necessarily the launch piece, but the Flatellite and the revenues and margins associated with that.
Yeah, that's true. What Francisco said as well.
What do you say?
Just mentioning how much we've seen Peter Beck meeting with government officials and stuff, that being a good sign for Golden Dome.
Mm-hmm.
Dave, I think it's your cutoff time, so thank you so much for coming on, and you're welcome anytime if you want to come on Rocket Lab.
Oh yeah, always fun to chat. It was a good time.
Good to see you, man.
You too. I'm sorry I missed the last few. Honestly,
you got a lot.
I've never turned it down because I don't feel like it. There's always something.
No, you always have something. You have a wedding, or you're moving, or somebody
you're
blew
making
up
a baby.
Your Airbnb. Yeah, you're making a baby.
That too. Yeah, Saturday afternoons they can be tough, but anyway, great to see you guys.
Great to see you, brother. Have a good day.
See everyone.
Cool, Matt. It's the OG crew, just you and me. Amen. By the way, on the cash flow, I just wanted to raise one thing, which I also saw in the comments, that let's say we're cash flow positive in 2027, but there's a huge question mark on the space infrastructure, because that can be that they find a business opportunity. Let's say it's actually a very interesting topic. Let's say they find an opportunity that would be $3 billion to develop with their own satellites and rockets. And let's say the market cap at that time is, 50 billion, let's say, then it's 6% dilution to add something that has the potential of being 60% of the revenue of the company.
That's the thing. I think a lot of people don't recognize this is if something is $3 billion to develop, you don't spend all $3 billion in 1 year. So you can break that up over the course of multiple years. And so, yes, it might cost, let's say, $3 billion, but if you're developing that over, say, 10 years, it's $300 million a year. It's much more digestible.
Yeah,
Sorry.
but I mean, on during those times, it's not helping with your cash flow. I just saw a funny comment by Curtis. Wait, I'm doing some math. Dave said they're telling 1 week long. When did they get married? Yeah, now we found out why they needed to get married. No, I'm kidding. Okay.
But no, I mean, you think about it, it's you're going to be able to get revenue as soon as one of those satellites gets up into the air, right? So even if you're only, say, developing 10 at a time, and you're getting them up, and let's just say you have to do that over the course of 10 years, it's going to help, because hopefully that gross margin increases, the revenue increases. And so let's just say they are making $300 million in cash flow by the time they get the satellites off and into the ground, and it costs $300 million a year to be able to go forward. Well, let's say they get a couple satellites up into the space and they're getting $100 million in revenue from that, and the gross margin ends up being such that they're able to walk away with an additional $50 million in cash flow. Now they make 350. Well, now they can either, spend 300 million and they still have $50 million in cash left over, or so it's not just like, it's not just going to be a flat amount. So I don't know. I look at it from an oil and gas perspective, how I work on oil and gas projects. So a lot of these things take decades to produce and fully develop. So long cash capex profiles that you need to fill in, and over the course of time, you still have these large tranches of revenue that are flowing through.
Yeah, and SW, I don't know who you are. He's also raising it in the comments that if you nerd out on the accounting, it's true. Like you don't, it doesn't become an expense because you're investing in this, so it becomes a capex basically, and it gets depreciated over time. So it will greatly help with profitability almost straight away, like when they do this. So
it'll help with lowering tax. So, for example, if you make $100 million in EBITDA and you're able to depreciate some of it, let's just say over 5 years, and let's just say you invested $100 million, you'll be able to, let's just say, walk away with a net income of $80 million, and instead of paying the taxes on $100 million of profit, you'll only have to pay it on 80. So it's an incentive to an extent. And so the cash will, and this is why I always, generally speaking, look at companies, especially if they're capex intensive, on what the actual cash flow into the business is, because you have these gap and net income measures that don't necessarily, like the gap piece includes that tax break associated with it. And maybe it's just because of my focus on the oil and gas industry, which sometimes is, I don't want to say too much, but anywhere between a couple billion to 20 or so plus $1 billion a year in capital expenditure, you can depreciate billions of dollars a year. And so when you think about it, the amount of cash flow you're getting in compared to your net income can be off by tens of billions of dollars. So, and a lot of that is just to basically give you that tax break. And so exactly right. I mean, what I would look at this going forward is that cash flow statement. I wouldn't necessarily look at the net income EPS, if that makes sense. And then same thing with and this is one of the key things that I was looking at with Palantir back in the day, to understand how I knew that Palantir was going to get profitable way before everyone else did, and that everything was heading in the right direction, is because Palantir, yes, they'd give out a lot of share-based compensation, and Rocket Lab gives out some share-based compensation, not to the extent of Palantir, but that also drags on your net income because it's a non-cash event, if that makes sense, and you kind of make shares out of nothing in that respect. But that has to be dragged out in the net income from a GAAP basis. And so while from a cash flow perspective, the company might be doing okay, from a net income perspective, you still have that drag. And so it's always nice, in my opinion, to see what the true cash into the business, cash out of the business, to see if the company in that respect can kind of actually remain on its feet. And yes, in the long term, having negative net income on a GAAP basis is bad, but a lot of these things, especially if you're looking at real estate investment trusts or real estate in general, you have a lot of tax advantages associated with those. And so sometimes those organizations will actually show negative earnings, but in the end of the day, they're very profitable businesses.
Cool. We have hit the 1 hour mark, and I think that we kind of went over the earnings. But I was thinking, if the audience has any questions, or you guys want us to take something up that you have a questions about, or you have a question about during the earnings, I think put it in the comments and then we take it up.
Mm-hmm.
And Francisco is very positive about Haze next year, and I mean we are too. I'm pretty sure Haze is going to be amazing for next year.
And for those of the people that haven't had the opportunity to look yet, or didn't have the opportunity to listen to earnings, I know there were several people that reached out to me personally. They had meetings, sometimes on the West Coast, obviously at 5 p.m. Eastern time. That's 2 p.m. On the West Coast, and so some people are still during their work day. They weren't actually able to listen in. There was an announcement for the opportunity for 10 folks to show up, 10 retail investors to show up to the launch opening that you kind of see the third column there on the screen. So that's going to be August 28th. And so I think they open it up on about 4 p.m. August 7th, and it's going to be open until I think the 15th. So you have about 6 more days, probably until next Friday, to be able to enter. So look on their website. If I could find the link, I'll post it in the description of the video. But make sure that you sign up. 10 folks. You have to be a U.S. citizen, just because it's a federally owned facility, and so that's a NASA thing. It's not a Rocket Lab thing. But yes, hopefully we'll be able to see you guys on camera, shaking hands with Sir Peter Beck and whatever government officials are probably there to ring it in. Maybe other people. Maybe Madison will be there.
Yeah. Or Ashley Vance. Yeah. All right. And by the way, I think Rocket Lab is fantastically gracious for even allowing 10 people. I saw on Twitter when, some Europeans were like, why can't Europeans come? Again, it can probably be arranged because, it's not that Europeans are banned from NASA facilities. I just think that Rocket Lab does not have the personnel to arrange logistics for, 100 people because you do have to go through quite heavy clearances to go to Wallops. And I think that place is not very big, as far as I understood from Matt. So even them allowing 10 retail investors to come, I think is very gracious for them. And I think they listened to us because we wanted a launch party. I don't know if you guys remember the interviews. Sir Peter Beck said that they absolutely cannot babysit us on launch day, and he will be probably in the toilet throwing up from the nerves, and he's not a pleasant person to be around on launch day. And then they said that maybe there can be an investor event or the pad opening, and then they did come back that okay, the pad opening is happening. And I honestly think this is as much as they can do, and they're already stretching it. I mean, I don't see any other companies inviting retail investors to their factory openings or this special demonstrations. So I think we need to be very thankful for to Rocket Lab, and for all my European friends or non-US friends, our time will come. Probably there will be LC4 opening in the EU. Who knows?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, we've already chatted with them in previous interviews, and they said that Haze will definitely be launching from multiple different countries in the future. Locations, they said, not countries, but definitely multiple locations in the future. At the moment, it's just LC2 that they've launched, right? So keep in mind, that means that it could be open to launching elsewhere in the world. And so we've already seen the hypersonics negotiations going on. with the UK, and so that's an avenue that's starting to. And if that's the case, maybe it ends up being an LC2 as well. But I wouldn't be surprised, as you said, Vince, to see that in the future. And I agree with you. I think we just should be very excited. I know it's hard to put your emotions aside. I know everyone wants to go, but I think it is very gracious that we have that. It is a distraction, I think, and to me, it's a balance, right? Of course, you want to make everybody happy from a retail shareholder base, but at the same time, there won't be a company if you don't get the rocket off the ground. And so it's a balance of making sure that you make sure you get the rocket off the ground, and you make sure you open it up to some of the retail folks. So anyway.
Yeah. So we have a very interesting question here. Blake Anderson, where do you see the stock going by the end of the year? I'm still holding since 4 to 6. You're a legend if you're still holding from 4 to 6. And I don't know. I kind of decided to quit on these predictions because I realized I don't know where the stock market is going. All I know is when I see an undervalued generational company, I know to buy it. I have been very bad on timing these things. As I said before, I kind of feel like the valuation is stretched where we are. But if we do get in a Golden Dome contract, that changes everything. I have to redo my model for the higher gross margins. That can change a lot of things. I think if we start getting interest rate cuts, that can it's not going to be selling it's not going to create selling pressure on the stock, that's for sure. So I don't know, but if you're here for the stock for the next 10 years, then who cares where the stock is at the end of the year?
Well said. Yeah, I was going to ask, do you want the PC answer from me, or do you want the Matt Farley answer from me, Spence?
Give us the Matt Farley, the tough
my answer is I don't give a flying fuck where the stock is by the end of the year, because I don't plan on selling for the next 10. And so unless the stock ends up being, let's say, $300 a share, which means approximately an equivalent $150 billion and market cap, I don't see myself selling. So why am I going to put an arbitrary deadline? It could go down to $30 tomorrow, $20 tomorrow, or go up to $60 tomorrow. It's really not going to make a difference to me. I fully, truly anticipate holding this company probably until it's paying dividends and buying back stock. And so you can put an arbitrary deadline on it. I don't know. I'm taking a longer term approach to this. I think that this is the number 2 player and will potentially grow into the number 1 player in space as the end-to-end space company. And so why, if in a growing space, why would I ever want to sell this thing? So it just doesn't make sense to me right now, unless it gets to some unbelievable valuation of, let's say, a couple $100 billion right now, without the total addressable market actually being there today. It just doesn't make sense for me to even think about selling it. So I don't care where it is at the end of the year. And it doesn't matter. Neutron could be before, it could be after the end of the year. What's the purpose of giving a price target? That's my answer. The political answer is, I don't know, $40.
I also don't know. I mean, I would love a dip, but yeah, it's also nice if the stock goes up. Yeah, you mean?
Sorry,
Curtis, you mean like Palantir? So yeah, on Palantir, I cannot make sense of that valuation. Like, would you would not sell that one?
I think Palantir will eventually be a $1.5 trillion company. And when I initially bought the company, keep in mind, I've been using the software since 2016, 2017. And I know this isn't Palantir Weekly, but for anybody that doesn't know, I work at an undisclosed oil company. If you really, truly want to know, feel free to find me on the internet. It's not hard. But I just like to keep the separation of church and state, and I hope you guys can appreciate that. But I've been utilizing Palantir software since 2016, 2017, and it's truly utterly changed the foundation of our business. Margins have increased substantially. Costs to lift barrels have been phenomenal, and so the cost to lift barrels have gone down substantially, probably on the order of 60 to 70%. And so I've seen what it's able to do. I've seen what the employees have done. And back in 2016, 2017, after getting it kicked off in our company, I said, man, if these guys ever go public, I'm going to buy stock. And so I did. Whenever it did in 2020, I think it was September 29th or 30th, 2020, they direct listed, and I bought at the time $10,000 worth, which was a lot of money for me. And since then, I've grown my position substantially. But from a share count perspective, and obviously the price has gone to the moon. But what I've known about the company, where I see the company being valuable, is it should replace Microsoft's Office. And to me, I think Microsoft Office is a $1.5 trillion business. And so it doesn't make sense for me unless Palantir is trading at $1 trillion or $1.5 trillion market cap valuation, that it should be sold. But I'm also underwater on covered calls in like the $100-ish range. So unfortunately, I can't realize the full value of it. So it's just one of those things where if it's increased from the $6 or $7 range to the $170, $180 range over the course of the last 24 months, and nobody can predict a movement like that. And so unfortunately, it's the potential underside of selling covered calls, as Vince knows, with selling in on Rocket Lab
and Palantir. Yeah. Okay, cool, everyone. Where is the status of your cover calls? Yeah, I mean, I still have them, and I'm looking at ways. I still have my shares also, and I'm looking at how I can get out of them. But obviously, the high share price is not helping me. So we see what happens. But I mean,
Vince, one of the things that I've looked at specifically for my Palantir ones is like, that the price of the company now is in the 40s. Granted, it could drop back down to $20, but we know more than we ever have about Rocket Lab. We know that the future of Flatellite and everything. I mean, do you think it's prudent to potentially sell, cash secured puts, take some of that money that you get from the cash secured puts to offset some of the costs of the debit associated with rolling, and you'd be able to potentially get yourself higher up and out?
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly like a margin question, because it would like it would increase the margin to a level on the account that is like there can be a scenario where I get wiped out, and then I'm not willing to have that. So for me, like the worst case scenario is like if I don't find any smart way how to handle it, that the shares get called away, and then I just buy from the money shares, and then I just have that. So yeah, but it's in the future. So it is what it is currently. Cool. I think this is a good point to end the stream. Thank you everyone for being here. It was a very interesting one. I'm so happy for Dave. It's so nice to get these baby announcements. So
that's why we do it, man. That's why we do it.
Yeah. So Matt, you're up next with the baby.
Gotta find. Maybe I need to come visit you in the Nordic states and find me a nice woman up there.
Yeah, there's very nice ones here. So
yeah. I don't track the ones here in the US very well, so I'll have to find some there.
All right. Well, if you want to come, I'll definitely help you out.
There you go.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you, everybody, and have a great evening, and goodbye.
Thanks for hosting, Vince.